Hey Doca family, welcome to episode 1 of the Doca podcast. Today we'll be catching up with one of our distinguished alumni and finding out more about her path through Doca and what she's getting up to now. With no further ado, I'd like to welcome Doca founder and director Joe Mendoza and alumni.
Hello all.
Pardon?
I said hello all.
Hello, and alumni Theresa Durkee. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
There we go. So, Theresa, to get started, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your current position, and basically your current situation?
Sure. So I'm Theresa Durkee. I'm from Salem, Connecticut. I had the ability to play for Doca soccer when I was in high school, and I went to college to play soccer at Providence College. And I just graduated this May, and I was lucky enough to get a position. So I'm currently working at a company called Boston Benefit Partners in Boston, Massachusetts, and it's a consulting firm. And I'm really enjoying it so far.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, Joe, one of your favorite players through Doca? No pressure.
Absolutely. She's definitely up there as one of the favorites. T at the beginning was a diamond in the rough, and to see her really flourish and become the player that she was through her high school and even into her college days, she definitely ranks up there as one of the favorites for Doca family.
There we go. Excellent. Okay, so Theresa, let's take it back right to the start. When did you get started playing soccer? How old? How did you get started? How did it all come about?
Yeah, I feel like every kid always soccer's that first sport when they're younger that their parents put them in just to get their energy out. So that was definitely me. I started when I was probably around 5, just in the general, rec team for my town. And I just loved it. I fell in love right away. And I tried so many other sports, gymnastics. It was just all too slow for me, but soccer for some reason just clicked. And then when I turned, 9, 10, I had a coach that said I should really take this seriously. And I know that's a young age, but my parents were all for it. And I ended up getting involved with travel club soccer at that age.
Okay. And you mentioned before you're now working in Boston. Did you grow up in Boston?
No. So I grew up in Connecticut, small town, Salem, Connecticut. I actually went to the town over, East Lyme High School, and played soccer there. Yep.
Okay, fantastic. So at what age did you get involved with Doca? When did that come about?
Yeah, so I actually have a very unique experience. I had the ability to play for Joe and his cousin Jen through another former club. And then I kind of had this ability to grow with Doca. I was actually a part, correct me if I'm wrong here, Joe, but I think I was a part of your first team for Doca my senior year of high school.
Yeah, you were. You were part of the first team. Prior to that, she did a lot of our training programs with Mendoza Soccer School. And as we grew our soccer business aspect of things, we grew our soccer school into a club, and that's where Doca came from.
So, Joe, you create the club and you have one of your first players, which is Theresa. How was that? What's your first memory of Theresa?
Oh God, my first memory of her was definitely back in the former club. Just her technical ability on the ball. She super athletic, and you could see that, and she just had all the raw tools to become a great player. And I think Theresa was at a crossroads during that time. T, correct me if I'm wrong. I think basketball was pretty big in your life too, and you were trying to figure out what direction you were going to go. And you could just see from her athletic ability that she was a very good athlete, and but for her technical aspect of the game, and she was one of these players at a young age that tactically she can understand the game. And I think it was a bit of a challenge for you, right, T? It was somewhere in your teenage years that you were a big AAU basketball player as well, and you had to make a decision on what direction you were going to go.
Yeah, that's completely true. Freshman year of high school, I actually ended up kind of quitting soccer. I know it was a hard discussion I had with both Jen and Joe, and I was like, I need to step away from soccer at this point, go play travel basketball, see if that's something that I really can see myself playing competitively in the coming years. And I took that year off, and I just didn't enjoy it as much. Ended up going back to soccer. But yeah, it was definitely like Joe said, crossroads for me that I had to make that decision.
Fantastic. So how was your time throughout Doca? Did anything, I asked Joe before, his first memories. What were your first memories? What stood out to you? If you have any, you can obviously say more than one if you did.
Right. I mean, there's so many great memories with Doca. I know just what I love the most to this day is that it's an extended family for me. Um, every time I was on the team, I was just so excited to go train. And it was tough technically, it was tough physically, but at the same time, like I knew all the coaches wanted what was best for me. And when I say I felt like they were my extended family, like I honestly to this day feel like these coaches like will welcome me with anything, open arms. I know I still go back and help the team a lot now, and I have to say that's one of my biggest memories to this day, how important they made me feel as a player, but how they also acknowledged me as a person. So I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to play for them.
Great stuff. It does sound like a special place, and you had a great time. Now, this leads on to the next question. Do you feel as though your time at Doca prepared you for the next level, which was college?
Yes, very much so. I a lot of people don't realize, everyone says college is a huge jump for a normal student academically, but it's an even bigger jump for a college athlete. And Doca, I remember that senior year, we had club trips that we would take pretty far away. And, usually you stay at hotels with your family and stuff, and you just get with your team when you have games. But Doca kind of took this spin on things where, hey, we're going to stay in a hotel. You're going to stay with your roommate. Like, that's what college is. Like, you're going to be in charge of your own schedule. So it kind of prepared me to be like, hey, like, I got to take things in my own hands. Like, this is what college is going to be like. So it brought that side of it, definitely on away trips. And at the same time, the technical soccer IQ side of a collegiate level sport is what Doca ingrained in me. The coaches really put this more technical side of the game, like not only what you do on the ball, but hey, when you get the ball, you got to think about what your next move is. How are you acting when you don't have the ball? What are your movements away from the ball? It all incorporated this bigger idea that I think the college level soccer offered. So it provided a lot of insight into the collegiate level.
And Joe, is that something that you do intentionally? Is the college sort of idea and preparing people for college, is that within your training sessions and games and part of the Doca philosophy?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that comes from a great deal of experience with, myself and Coach Jen, both being collegiate coaches for a period of time. And as they start to approach their high school years, we'll start to have a little bit more focus on what it's going to be like. And we've even started that, obviously, like he was talking about, when we venture off to our away trips and go off to tournaments. It's very important that, we want them to have fun, but also take it serious to the point like this is kind of a trip for you where we want to come out and be successful. And so they'll have agendas, they'll have roommates, they'll have to follow a pretty strict schedule with free time for bonding and stuff of that nature. But we're all just trying to prepare for what it's going to look like for that next level. And, kind of going back to T's Theresa's year with Doca, her senior year, that was pretty unique. You know, we it was our first year of starting off the club, and we had a fantastic, excellent group of girls. I want to say, if not 50%, but 75% of them went on to play at Division 1, 2, and 3. And they were just a great group. And we tweaked it a little bit different that year, where we focused on 3 training sessions a week, and we participated in more tournaments rather than league play. And we were also fortunate enough to enter into the 7-a-side college tournament. So not only are we preparing them for college, but we were able to get them to play small-sided matches against Division 1, 2, and 3 schools from the local Connecticut area, as well as the Northeast. So it was really a unique opportunity for them. I will say that probably helped a lot of them get identified a little bit more, especially for some that were a bit younger, that were juniors. And it was just an excellent time. And yeah, you know, going back to the original question about, as they get into their high school age years, we want to have the focus for those that are going to play at the next level on what it's going to look like.
So with that in mind, Theresa, Joe just mentioned something about that stuck out to me about getting identified.
Yeah.
And how the club Doca prepares players like yourself for that. When was it where it stood out to you? You mentioned about basketball before. When was it where it was like, okay, it's soccer, and okay, I want to play soccer at college? At what stage was it, if you can recall?
Yeah. I think for me, a big part of it was the coaches that I had, specifically Jen and Joe, that I kind of realized how much soccer meant to me. I know basketball, to me, I just couldn't see myself loving it throughout college. It just seemed more of a physical activity I was doing than something I could commit myself to. And, you know, college level, you really have to be committed to the sport, and you really have to truly love it, I think, to make it through. So I don't know if it was technically one specific thing, but I think it was what Doca offered me that I realized, wow, like I couldn't miss another year playing for these coaches and learning more about this sport that I truly love.
So with the whole I don't want to jump the gun, but with the whole college recruitment and stuff, that process, was the coaches at Doca helping you through that, helping you guide you? Were you speaking to Doca when you were going through the whole commitment process and looking at colleges?
Yeah, so Jen and Joe really helped me a lot through the networking process. I mean, they, like Joe mentioned previously, we would be able to go to all these ID clinics that all the colleges held. And, you know, it's hard when you're at these clinics. You're one of 50, 75 plus players trying to be identified, like trying to be pulled out of that crowd as a potential player for this school that you're looking at. And they were more than helpful to reach out to the coaches, give them like a little hint, like, hey, technically, like this girl has the potential to get there. Because at these clinics, you have like 2 hours to really, really prove yourself. And as any other player would know, it's the pressure of that you're under in that moment. It can be very, very iffy, and you may not be playing up to your potential. So having those coaches as an extra push, an extra connection to maybe get your foot in the door to where you wouldn't have that at a normal club was so beneficial. And honestly, to this day, I say it helped me so much get into Providence College and be successful at that level.
Awesome. So with that in mind, you just mentioned Providence College, right? It's very well known, not just athletically, but also academically. So for you, Joe, what was it like having, obviously Theresa came in, it was in your squad, you followed her along throughout Doca, and then she commits to a school like Providence. How was that for you?
Oh, it was great. It was fantastic. I think it was well deserved on her end. I think, sometimes, like when she had mentioned going to ID clinics and just giving coaches heads up, and it's just more of, hey, I have a player coming. This is what she's about. Give me your honest assessment and what you think. And I think that was the same process with Providence College. I'm going to bring back memories for Theresa, but we played in a futsal tournament there. And I think that's when the conversation really started with their head coach. We were able to, talk a bit about her. Coach Jen and I talked with head coach there, Sam Lopes, about her and the abilities that she had. And his eyes lit up, and he kind of tracked her from there on out. And that was one of those situations where, we felt comfortable with what his methodologies are and his training methods and how he likes to coach. And there would be some similarities, maybe not all. Every coach is different. But that was like a unique opportunity for Theresa, and I think she kind of fell in love with the school, and that's how the path took. And we're very, very, very happy for her. I think it was a match made in heaven. And correct me if I'm wrong, T. I don't think you were really looking at any others after that whole process started. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But...
Yeah, I went to I try to go, like a lot of kids that age, try to go to a bunch of ID clinics, just to get feedback, like Joe was saying. And honestly, I was that futsal tournament that I really fell in love with the campus right away when I was there. And then that summer I went back and did another 2-day clinic over the weekend. And, between the coaching tactics and all that, I just fell in love with the soccer side of it as well. So it was, and from there it was kind of history. I didn't do much looking after that.
There we go. It's always nice when you've committed to a school and that's where you're going, and obviously it gets rid of many other distractions of looking. When you know you find the school that's for you, it's fantastic, right?
Exactly.
So you start Providence. For any freshman getting started right away at a university, there's so much that comes with it. I'm sure academically there's a bunch. Then you've got to deal with whether you're living on campus. You're turning a big page in your life. Soccer-wise, Joe just mentioned before about there was many similarities, or not many, but there was a few coaching similarities. Can you speak more about that in terms of the similarities that were there, and did that make you feel more comfortable as a freshman because you were used to certain things?
Yeah, exactly what Joe said. Joe and Jen really have a very technical side, tactical side, that I don't think you get at a lot of other clubs, especially at a young age. It was more, why are we doing this? Why are we switching the field? Why are you checking to the ball? Why are you checking your shoulder before you get the ball? And when I got to the college level, like my coach there, very similar. We would have whiteboard sessions where he'd be like, why would you cut here? Why would you make this long diagonal pass? It was more questioning the game and understanding the game in a level that I don't think too many kids had the ability to do when they were at their club teams. But I was lucky enough that I kind of was prepared for that side of soccer. Obviously I learned a lot more at college, but I think I had a step up compared to the other players in that aspect of the game.
So Joe, them questions that Theresa's mentioning, do you ask your players questions in case if they've done something wrong, you want to know why, or why do you ask your player questions?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we want them to be able to understand the game that we're trying to coach it, and the reasons why. Mistakes are made. Mistakes are expected to be made, but how can we learn from them? How can they start to make decisions on the field without a coach on the sideline yelling every move to them? And that's kind of what we're trying to create. We focus a lot on player development, but, obviously that all comes together within a group. So if all players are able to compete and play at the highest level and bring them together as a group, it's definitely beneficial. So as we're having those conversations, everybody needs to have an understanding of their roles and responsibilities. And that's why the questions are always being asked. Regardless if you're a left back or a target player, I want you to have the understanding of what each player's role and responsibility is, and how things fall into play on the field, and know that you have to be able to retain the information, and then when you're playing, make your decisions. So it's just another opportunity for them to, read and understand the game, but also have a clear vision of what decisions they want to make on the field.
I think that's really important that you said that. It's something that, as a teacher of the game, you don't want to just tell your players, okay, do this, do this, do this, because then they turn into sort of just reacting to what you're saying rather than learning. If you want people to grow, not just as a player, but as a person, questioning them can really help that, correct?
Absolutely. And I think, sometimes society, especially at youth sports, they lose the vision of what it's really about. For kids to go out there and enjoy and play the game and learn. And for those that want to really take themselves to the next level, they need to develop. They need to learn. It's not all about results. I mean, I can ask either one of you, can you tell me your record or how many goals you scored when you were 10 or 11 or 12? Probably not. And it really doesn't mean anything. But I think we kind of lose track of, developing the player so they can make decisions on their own. We still see it. You see girls and even boys that at a younger age are bigger, stronger, faster. They're able to dominate games, but maybe they're just utilizing that one special skill, throughout their youth part of their career. But when everybody else starts to grow and develop, if they're not understanding and learning the game and enhancing their skills, they're no longer the bigger, stronger, faster player. They're now kind of falling into number 16, 17, 18 on your roster. So yeah, that's a key component to what we do. And I'm glad that T had mentioned it. And that's kind of what our focus is.
There we go. Theresa, over to you. Back to Providence College. Am I right in saying it's the Friars?
Yes. Yep.
To the Friars. Okay, so you're a Friar, right?
Yeah.
You're a freshman through to a senior. Firstly, tell me about your experience there on the field.
Yeah, so I had a pretty unique experience on the field at Providence College. I did come in freshman year injured. I tore my ACL. So for me, that kind of was an added struggle, like we were discussing earlier. Academically, it's a step. Athletically, it's a step. But then on top of that, I had to kind of maneuver this path of like recovering from a pretty serious injury. But honestly, I feel like that injury made me understand, improve my soccer IQ from that point forward, and really prepared me well for my next 3 years playing on the field. And I came into Providence as a true center mid. And after my injuries and things like that, I ended up becoming a forward. So that was like a big transition for me, trying to understand the game with like my back to the field, not what I'm used to as a center mid. And then my junior and senior year, I transitioned to an outside mid. So it was a great experience, just a lot of learning curves, but ended up doing pretty well. So.
That's interesting you mentioned that, because I've also experienced something similar, but in terms of your injuries, right? And that's a message to be said about, and Joe, you can mention and talk to this, just because you're injured doesn't mean you stop excelling as a soccer player or stop progressing or stop learning, right? Because it almost gives you a silver lining and something that you don't get as a player playing 90 minutes each week. You get to come out of it and look at the game from, I guess, the sideline and see different movements and the way people play in your position. Is that important, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, sometimes when a player gets injured, they can kind of want to disconnect themselves and be depressed and, be upset. But those that you can kind of say, hey, sit beside me. I want you to see it how I see it. I'm going to make you an assistant coach. I want you to start viewing how many passes can we make coming out of the back? How many times can we connect the ball? So now you're providing them different tasks to look for in the game. So they're benefiting just as much as those on the field, just due to the fact now they're looking at the game from a whole different view. And I think they get a better sense of expectations of what the coach is looking for, understanding different scenarios, and most importantly, understanding the culture that's going on, not only with the players on the field, but the players off the field. So it really allows them to evaluate a lot of things. And during this period of time of, we can say injury, but I like to call evaluation, they could start to really figure out, what do I have to do now to give myself the best opportunity to stay on the field any given day, right? I want to play a full 90, or at least just get on the field again. And so now their mindset can change a little bit and turn this, which is definitely a negative situation at that moment in your life, into a positive, and come back, smarter, faster, and stronger. And now having a better understanding of what expectations are from the coach, and different views and aspects of the game that you got to learn and develop as you were sitting out on the sideline.
And Theresa, that's something that you just mentioned, right? You transitioned your position.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And Joe's completely right. From a player's perspective, I couldn't play soccer for 6+ months, but at the same time, I learned so much more watching the games from the sidelines. I learned, if I want to play outside mid, I'm going to have to pick up my fitness when I come back from this injury. I'm going to focus on cutting, turning, my abilities on and off the ball. So I definitely learned so much more about my coach, about my teammates, and about what I needed to do to prepare myself. So when I was ready to touch the field again, when I was ready to play again, I could be able to compete at that next level.
Awesome.
So it was really eye-opening.
But I also think you learned a lot about yourself as well. Because listen, there were some hard times there. We've had some text messages back and forth. We've had some phone calls. We had some in-person meetings. But I think that's another factor that, you kind of take away the psychological aspect of where your mind is. And it's super easy to get down on yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's super easy to start questioning everything. But I also think, from a mental standpoint, and I give you a lot of credit because mentally you were able to come back stronger, faster, smarter, but even just overcoming those obstacles of being depressed and just kind of going through this routine of treatment, class meetings, training, which you can't play at. And it's a process, and it does take a lot out of you. But I think the mental aspect is something very important that people start to forget about. At the end of the day, you're taking away something that you love to do. And you got to figure out a way to get back into that competitive group. And all credit to you that you did a very good job and you were able to overcome a lot. So kudos to you, bud.
Thank you. Yeah, it definitely mentally was a challenge, like Joe said. It kind of is just like the same old pattern, nothing new. You have to get to practice an hour and a half early to do your treatment because you can't be doing treatment during practice. And then you're just like standing at practice collecting soccer balls and you're just like, oh, I just want to be out there again. So it definitely took a mental toll, but once you put it into perspective, I think that's what I learned best. Like, it could be worse. I will be able to hopefully play again, and I was still surrounded by the sport I love. So it was an eye opener in so many ways.
So with that in mind, obviously soccer, you're injured right now. You can be learning, but it's on a bit of a, I wouldn't say a break, right? But you're having a different experience right now with soccer. I'm looking at sort of a few awards right now on the computer. It doesn't look like academically you struggled. Can you tell me a little more about your academics at college?
Yeah, sure. So I think the injury actually had a lot to do with how dedicated I was academically. I'm very competitive. So I couldn't compete on the soccer field. So my freshman year, I was like, I want to be the best in the classroom. So I really committed myself academically. College is a different monster within itself academically. You're staying up till 2 a.m. trying to finish your homework. And, I probably was a bit lucky my freshman year in the fact that I wasn't necessarily practicing. So I told myself I didn't need as much sleep. But then once you get into the routine of understanding, what you had to prioritize on the field, what you had to prioritize academically, I got into this great schedule. And I really was able to flourish at Providence College, which I'm really proud about.
And I think you're being a little modest. Would you like to discuss, or Joe, would you like to discuss achievements at college?
No, let's put Theresa on the spot. Theresa, what were your goals at college?
Yeah, so I was co-valedictorian of my Providence College class for 2020, which is amazing. And I still can't believe it, but it was great.
That is amazing.
Awesome award. And for kids or parents even that want a little more information about that, what does that entail? What is that award?
Yeah, so I finished college with a 3.99 GPA, and I was number one in my class out of over 990 students for Bachelor of Science. So I studied, just so people know, I studied health policy and management and got a minor in finance.
And Joe, during the coaching days at Doca, did you teach any of that? Can you claim any of that, or is that all Theresa?
No, I'm going to claim a little bit. Anytime that a player missed a session due to schoolwork, that was never a problem for us. So that was always key. There's three things that are key with us. It's, obviously it's family, it's schoolwork, then it comes soccer. So from that standpoint, that's the only thing I can claim, James. And I will go on record saying she's probably the smartest person on this podcast right now. Thanks, T. Appreciate it.
Here we go. I'd probably agree with that one. Okay, let's start wrapping up. Got a few more questions for you, Theresa. One or two, if that's okay.
Of course.
The next question would be, if you had to give advice to yourself when you were just starting, or should we say a young Doca player, what advice would you give? If you put yourself there, what do you wish you would have known or had advice on?
Ooh, good question. I probably would say don't put as much pressure on yourself. Just because I love the sport so much, and I still do. But at points with the injuries and everything, you kind of lose sight of why you're playing soccer. You're playing it because you love it. And you try to get into this perfectionist mindset of, I have to do this perfect. I have to, make this pass perfect. I have to score this goal when I'm wide open. But at points, it's kind of, you have to let that go and just play the sport how to play because you love it. So that would probably be the advice I would give to myself.
Fantastic advice. And then last question would be, what does the future hold for you? What's your plans? Do you have any?
It's hard with all these uncertain times right now, for sure, to even think about that. I definitely want to continue to grow professionally in the field I'm in. And then hopefully, I unfortunately haven't been able to get into coaching up here, or even any co-ed leagues. I know I used to play on Doca's adult co-ed league, and those were great times, as Joe can attest to. So I definitely want to get back into playing soccer. I've really been missing it, and even get into coaching, just because I think it's a different side of soccer that I would really enjoy.
Fantastic. Well, Theresa, thank you very much for your time. It was awesome to be on the call with you and to listen in on this podcast to your story. And Joe, thank you. So any closing remarks from you guys?
Yeah, Theresa, thanks so much. Obviously, you're part of the Doca family, and you always have, you always will be. And I know the question was overlooked, who was your favorite coach. As much as you would want to say it's probably me, you'll probably be politically correct and say T. Joe, which is my father.
Always T. Joe. Yep.
But hey, you've been a fantastic role model. Even during the times of when the pandemic started, you got on and did virtual training sessions for us. You're always welcome. I'm sure we'll see you at training next Sunday when you come home for break. Hopefully you can pop your head in. But hey, keep doing what you're doing. We always hope for the best for you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for asking me to be on this. It made my week. So, I'm excited to talk about Doca because, as I've mentioned multiple times, they helped me get to where I am today.
Great stuff. Well, guys, this was episode 1 of the Doca podcast. Thank you very much, guys.